All right, well, with me now, Gershon Baskin. He's one of the negotiators who helped broker the deal to release hundreds of Palestinian prisoners in exchange for the kidnapped Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit back in 2011. He's now the Middle East director of the International Communities Organization, the ICO. Thanks for being with us, Gershon. So, we hear the pain of those people day after day going through absolute hell. 137 families are dealing with this. Hamas broke the ceasefire on Friday. There was a ceasefire and we were seeing hostages handed over day by day. What are the hopes of getting those people back, the people who are still being held?
I think we have to remain hopeful, and we have to push the Israeli government to make the hostage issue the #1 priority. The war can continue at any time. The goals of the war can be accomplished at any time. The first priority has to be on getting the hostages back. And even if Hamas broke the ceasefire, which it did, Israel still needs to continue to do everything possible to bring as many hostages home as soon as possible. We've heard the horror that the hostages have gone through. We can't allow them to stay in Gaza even another day.
Right, but when you've got tanks going into Khan Yunis in the south of Gaza, when we've got our troops now operational on the ground, for them to halt the offensive would put their lives at risk.
We halted the offensive for a week. We could have halted for another few days. We could have tried more to get Hamas to make a deal. It's true they did not submit the list that we wanted to. They wanted to change the nature of the agreement. They wanted to make other demands. We should put our own offers on the table and push Hamas to release as many hostages as possible. As I said, we could have waited another day, another 2 days, even another week. The war isn't going anywhere. The tanks are there, and the tanks can move down in the south of the Gaza Strip as soon as we want them to. The first priority has to be to get the hostages out.
Isn't it a fact, though, that it's only the military pressure on Hamas that got them to agree to a ceasefire in the first place?
No, that is not a fact. That is an assumption that some people in the government and the army are making. We don't know if that's true at all. In fact, what I know is that before the Israeli army surrounded the city of Gaza, the Egyptian intelligence was working with Hamas to get a list of hostages that Hamas was ready to release. And as soon as the Israeli army surrounded the city of Gaza and entered the city of Gaza, Hamas froze that process. It might have been possible to make this deal 3 weeks earlier than it was done. There is an assumption made by the army and made by the government that the pressure, the military pressure on Hamas is what pushed it to make the deal. The opposite could be true. I don't know, and neither does anyone else. It's a guessing game of what if, and no one knows for sure.
But you of all people must know that there is sometimes a price that is too high to pay. I mean, you were involved in the deal to release Sinwar, the man who orchestrated this operation. I mean, if the offensives is halted now, not only would troops be put in danger, but you are allowing Hamas to survive another day.
The troops were not in danger in the positions that they were held in for a week.
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, but former generals and military experts say otherwise.
Well, I said also that a ceasefire requires redeployment and securing the place of the troops. The troops know how to take care of themselves. The army knows how to take care of themselves. It's the army itself who was ready to wait another day or two if more hostages could be brought out. It was a decision of the military cabinet and the government to restart the war. Most of the people in the army say that they could have waited another day or 2 or 3 or more, whatever is required to get the hostages out. It's a matter of priorities that the Israeli government decides. It's its right to decide, but there is no one who can say for 100% that the military pressure on the government on Hamas has brought about that deal.
And nobody can say, no, absolutely not. Nobody can say 100% the other way either. You've got these large protests in Tel Aviv. Everyone wants to see the hostages come home. But when you have these big rallies and you have people chanting now, bring them back, is this not kind of directing the anger at the wrong place? Putting pressure on the government when it's actually Hamas that decides when to release the hostages?
We have no pressure on Hamas. What we do know about
we have military pressure.
I have 17 years of experience of negotiating with Hamas, and one thing I can tell you is that Hamas doesn't change the price. The saying in Israel, the slogan is that the more pressure of the Israeli public on the government makes Hamas raise the price. That's not true. They have nowhere to raise it. They put out the price. They want all for all. And we don't have to give them all for all. We want the women and the children back. We want the elderly men back. The negotiations on the soldiers will be a different negotiation. But there are deals that still can be made with Hamas without paying the ultimate final price that they want, and that needs to be pursued by the government. It is the moral responsibility of the government of Israel to bring these hostages home. The government failed to protect them. They were taken from their homes because of the failure of Israel to protect its citizens, and the moral responsibility of the government is to bring them home.
And the fact that Yahya Sinwar was free. Guy Azriel, our reporter, would like to ask you a question.
Yahya Sinwar is just one person. You know, there is no shortage of Palestinians who are willing to fight with terrorism against Israel as long as this conflict remains. And this conflict has remained for too long. As long as we make no sincere effort to end the conflict, there is an endless amount of Palestinians who are willing to take up a gun against us. And it's not Yahya Sinwar, it's many, many Yahya Sinwars.
Okay, Guy.
The argument that is made, of course, the two arguments. One of them is the fact that Hamas is not looking to end the conflict, or the only end to the conflict that Hamas is willing to accept is the elimination of the state of Israel completely. So how do you meet halfway through that?
We don't negotiate with Hamas for peace. We have to destroy Hamas. There's no question about that.
Okay, and when we hear the former Mossad head of MIA, Rami Igra, he says that this is his argument that the protests that we're seeing today from the families actually do raise the price that Hamas is asking for.
Well, with all due respect to Rami Igra, he was in the position to deal with missing people and hostages for many years, and he achieved zero. So I don't think we should listen to Rami Igra as the ultimate defender of policies that have never worked.
All right. Well, we'll take that up with him. Gershon Baskin, thank you very much.
You're welcome.